I can't say hello Singapore again, because you're not in Singapore anymore. Hi, Malar. Good evening.
Hi, Singapore. I can say that, and I'm from Malaysia.
Yeah, you're looking lovely. As I said, you're looking like an actress would look like in the 50s. No, sorry, the 60s and the 70s when you had the movies, right? Your hair's done very nicely. Yeah. Okay. So you just
I
finished
hope
a program.
that's right. And of course, as you can see, I'm actually at the training venue.
Yeah, okay. Yes, I'd rather you be there than try to brave the jam in KL getting back to get onto the show. So yeah, I'm all good with that. Very good. So we've hit May, you know.
I know,
Uh
right?
right. It's like, whoa, okay, it's running and rolling. We started in March, we are in May, and we've been having such good fun having with the topics that we've had over the weeks. And Ashok said we needed to think about this year, 2024, in terms of topics that matter. Right. So, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, this is Leadership in Flow Asia, Season 3, ladies and gentlemen. We come together every Thursday at 6 p.m. Malaysia, Singapore time to talk about topics that matter. And we talk about it from the perspective of what we term quiet leaders. These are the leaders who are introspective, these are the leaders who are clear about what their intentions are, what their goals are, where they want to make a change, what matters to them, right? And we investigate what is it, how is it they're thinking about these issues from three pillars. One is personal growth, second would be their leadership growth, and third, obviously, when you deal with these two pillars, then business growth, naturally happens, right? So yeah, that's a little bit about what the show is about. Malar, what's intriguing you about this week's show
Well,
or
besides the
TV?
speaker,
Hmm.
I'm very curious to explore ideal. I think when you think about ideal, I think it's such an interesting word, right? Because I
Hmm.
think we all have ideals, and I'm very curious to hear Savita share with us what is the ideal she has in her mind, and how that impacts leadership, and how that
Hmm.
creates leadership in flow. Because I think what I love about the show is bringing about practitioners who share with them wisdom that they
Hmm.
have internalized. So I'm
Hmm.
really looking forward to the framework of ideal that she's talking about.
Very good. Very good. And so let's introduce Savita. We both met Savita at the same time, and that was at the Leadership Learning Festival, our first Leadership Learning Festival in Singapore in November 2023. And the festival was a natural progression from running this show every week. And Savita joined us. She said yes to our invitation. She joined us. And I remember very vividly that right from the get go, right from the start, I could feel her energy, and she had this energy of really getting into the vibe, but she also had this energy of curiosity and openness to whatever that we were going to do. She had no idea what we were going to do, right? And all the questions that you asked and things like that. So I thought, I mean, I like the energy, and I got to talking to her post that event and found that there was an angle for us to bring her to the show. A little bit about background. This is a lady who's steeped in HR. So she's a leader who's very deep in the HR space. She's been in all the regions. She's taken care of HR in name it, right? Asia Pacific, North America, EMEA, right? And she's worked with the brands that, when we think about where do we want to go and work, those would be the brands that want to go and work. Oracles, the KPMG, Singtel, NCS, Red Hat, as well as Elastic. And in her current role, that's where we are going to talk about what she's doing in her role as Vice President of DE&I, Culture and Talent, at SUSE, which is a German company and an open source German company, and we're going to talk to her a little bit about that and also what she's doing in terms of DEI. So let's bring Savita up to the stage. Right. Hello. Hello, hello. I put Mala in her rightful position. There we go. Hi,
Okay.
Savita.
Hi, Sharmini. Thanks for inviting me into this program.
You're most welcome. Like I said, your energy is contagious. And yeah, it was lovely for you to say yes to us as well. So it's a two-way street. You need to say yes in order for you to, be in the program. So I talked a little bit about your background and how right now you're looking at DE&I, culture and talent, but I don't think it's only now. I think it's something that you've been dabbling with for a while, right? And when we had our chat, we talked about this term that you coined, all right? You coined ideal, right? And I thought, oh, that's an interesting thing. And then when you deciphered it for us, I thought, oh, that's really, really interesting because it had things that Muller and I talk about in some of the leadership programs that we facilitate, right? So I'm going to pass the floor to you and ask you to tell us what is ideal. So introduce ideal to us. How did you think of constructing it in the first place? And then, let alone defining it. Yeah. Over to you.
Sure. So ideal is, our approach to DEI, as an open source organization with SUSE. So DEI is something absolutely core for us. And all of our values and how, as an open source organization, how we go with and how we want our people to be reflecting on. So which is why when we were looking at coming up with the DEI strategy and what is our approach, we were very particular that we wanted to slightly reposition DEI and start with I. Because truly, if we are looking at DEI, it should ideally start with inclusion. Because it is important that how every single person in the company, is authentic. They feel psychologically safe. They feel valued. They feel respected, empowered, and how they can contribute and be their best, irrespective of their background or identity, right? And how we as an organization can provide that right platform, right? Not an equal platform, but the right platform so that everybody can thrive and be their best. So if we take care of these two things, then diversity would become a natural outcome. And we truly believe that. So which is where we said, well, how are we going to be embedding this? So which is why we wanted to add, apart from IDE, we wanted to add few elements onto it. And A was an important one because we felt as an open organization, it's not somebody as an HR or the people team or the top leaders, who think about DEI. It should be every single person because they are responsible and accountable for making ideal happen. And which is why we added the A. And then the L part was another important one because L is the leadership part. Because we believe that the leadership, while everybody is responsible and accountable, the leadership will have to create that and foster that right culture and values and make sure that they are driving it and actually making it happen. So that's how we brought it together and formed it as Ideal, where we always think it should start with I, and we do that right, then diversity becomes a natural outcome.
For it. Okay. I've got two questions and I'll pass it on to Malar, right? You said not equal but right.
Yes.
Can you help me understand that a little bit more?
Yeah, that's where I would talk about equity, right? Because there are people who are different. Everybody has different access to resources, opportunities, representation. Everyone's different. Even if you have to think about it simply, like if you're talking about, let's say, somebody may not be able to work full time because they have other responsibilities. Maybe they've just had a child, or whatever be the case, right? So we wanted to make sure that it's not an equal platform. It's the right platform so that every individual, we look at what those disparities are and we make sure that there's the right platform for everyone. So that I know it's not easy. It's easier said than done, understanding it, but it's also how we ensure that which is why inclusion comes first. They have a voice, they have a decision-making process, they are part of it. If we do all of that right and we provide the right platform, then there's no reason why anybody can feel comfortable and anybody can thrive in this kind of an environment.
Okay, so well, I thought this was going to be the second question, but it's not the second question. So when you say the right platform and everybody is given a right platform, can you give me an example so that I think it will help me, I know, and definitely our viewers and listeners to know, okay, what do you mean by the right platform, right? So if I'm totally obtuse and I really have no clue, right? So if I am in Suza, how would I see, oh, okay, that's the right platform for me. And that platform is actually not being used by Muller. Muller's using another platform. Right? Can you help us share that with us?
Sure. We call this as how do we make Suza as a dream place to work? And a dream place is, how is it a dream environment to work? How is a dream workplace? How is it that, anybody can be comfortable? It's their dream job. It's their dream team. It's their dream manager. Now, to look at how do we do this, we don't believe in constructing all of this by ourselves or sitting in an ivory tower. The way we do it is we involve people. The way everything that we do is involving people in it. What does that mean to them? What does it mean to all of us? Because this is our company. And what is meaningful? So to give you an idea, when we did the employee engagement surveys, we actually added a lot of questions on engagement and DEI and all of that. But we didn't stop there. We had more than 20 to 25 workshops, engagement workshops, as we called it, across the world, to basically first understand, there could be things lost in translation. So we wanted to understand a little bit more and also look at what does a dream place look like to everybody. And what kind of actions should we be taking as an organization, which is meaningful for everyone? So the outcome of those 20 plus, workshops that we did was to really look at, okay, what should be the top 3 things that we should be doing to ensure that. We also gathered input in so many fun ways too. So for example, we created a contest where people could say, what does a dream place to work look like for them? And they had to actually, do it in the most creative way they could think of. They could do it in the form of a painting. They could do it in the form of, a skit, anything that they could think of, a song or anything. And they could do it as an individual or as a team. And, we've got such amazing response to it that we had to actually extend it for a longer time because people wanted more time to come up with more entries and so on. So what we're trying to do with all of this is trying to see how we build everything as a true open source organization where we are really involving everybody in what we want to define as an organization, what does DEI mean to us? How do we create a great place to work? Because this is all us, and we do it together. We co-create it, and we make success happen for each other.
Okay. Thank you for that. It's interesting how you thought creatively about how to draw that information out of the people in the team, right? To get their ideas and put that into perspective for you, right? Rather than just words, because it could mean different things to different people. For Savitha Nayak, why is ideal important? Why is it that you are so into this
Yeah.
ideal? Yeah.
Yeah. See, I feel, it's how we look at it, right? Because I feel we didn't want to take a superficial approach to DEI because in many organizations, maybe diversity is just seen as genders, maybe a little bit more than that. And how do we measure the success of DEI? Is it just looking at what should be diversity ratios? Some people should, think, well, should we add in some targets that we have to meet? And even if we meet a specific target, okay, we say 60, 40, etc., what does that mean? Does that make us successful as DEI? So that's where we really felt that for the true success of DEI, if we truly embody in everything that we do as an organization, starting with inclusion and providing the equity and how we build it together, then diversity becomes a natural outcome. And that's why we're very particular about it. And we also say that it's not just us, how we involve and engage, and how do we get everybody. And we do this not just for a dream place to work. We do this in an open. Everything is open sourced in the way we work. So whether it is building our mission together, building our strategies together, we come up with creative ways on how do we work with the entire organization and get all of their inputs and then incorporate it. So it's sometimes people may think, well, that's a slow process. But actually, when we have to implement it, it becomes that much more because it's everybody who is discussed, debated, and then we've all come together and say, okay, this is what should be right for SUSE, and we move forward with that. So that's why this is important, right? Because you don't want to just look at diversity. The whole idea about DEI is really how can we make this a great place for everyone? Doesn't matter who they are, what background they are from. And when I say dream place, it also has an acronym to go with it. D stands for develop, R stands for, so it's how do we develop everyone, reward and recognition. R is reward and recognition. E for engage, empower, as well as the experience. How do we have the best experience for our people? And A stands for attracting the best and attracting the right people. And M stands for the foundation, because M is in the bottom, because that's the foundation which is maximizing the SUSE culture. And how all of this comes together, because if you see, DEI actually cuts across all of this on how we, so how do we, look at ideal cutting across all of these things? How do we, in the way we develop our people, from the time we hire them, onboard them, how we develop them, how we reward them, how we engage them, how this all comes together. And that makes our, values and our culture and how it all binds us together.
Okay, interesting. It looks like it's an organization with acronyms.
Sometimes people call me as an acronym queen. And it's some things which it's easier and it sticks and it has a meaning to it, then it's easier for everybody to remember, right? Because the reason why I talk about having an acronym is, like if you're talking about ideal, it's ideally how DEI should be treated. And so it's not acronym for the sake of getting an acronym, but it
Mm.
has to have the right context and it's easy for somebody to remember.
Yep. Yep. It is true. Malar, over to you, Malar.
Okay, I'm not sure whether I heard you well just now. Did you say authentic just now?
um,
For which one?
Authentic.
When you were defining ideal for us, I think I heard authentic and psychological safety.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Because we want to make sure that every person can be their authentic self in the organization. They won't have
Hmm.
to put on a mask to come into the say, okay, let me put on my mask and now because I am now working. It shouldn't be that. They should be their authentic self. Um, and that's when we can get the best out of them. So yes,
Yeah.
that's why it's a true, a very important element of inclusivity.
Yeah, I mean, I love the word authenticity first. So when you said it, of course, I just wrote it down because I was very curious, right? Now, because it makes a lot of sense. The reason we need DEI is because we want to create the space for authenticity,
That's right.
right? I just get to be me, and for me to be just me, you need to know that I'm different, yet I'm valued. And if you can see that, then I would be able to bring my best self to life, right? But I'm very curious to know, how do you, when, because you spoke about attracting people from the point of attracting talent, you're already looking at, how to be ideal. I mean, and I think it's your ideal is very ideal, right? How does authenticity, right, match how do you match authenticity with skill sets that's required for the business?
See, that's see when we say authenticity, right? It's as I said, people don't have to wear a mask and be prim and proper and how do they go about it? If because that comes from the open source principles, right? Anybody can have a great idea. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. Anybody can be going about it, coming up with a great idea, can come up with something. How do we involve into everybody in decision making? If people, are unhappy about it, do they feel a sense of belonging? Do they feel that they are not, part of the organization properly because of the way, the environment is? All of those things are important, right? So how do we ensure those things are? Because if we develop people right, and if we are able to look at how they can blossom well, how they can be their best, by being authentic, then it naturally comes in. Now, all of that comes with a sense of accountability, right? Because sometimes people think, yes, I can be my authentic self. Doesn't mean I can be an asshole with that. You know what I mean? I can't
Hmm.
be. Sorry for the words
Hmm. It's okay.
to be able to, but it does not mean I can hurt someone with my feelings.
Yeah.
With whatever I say. It doesn't mean, oh, I'm being authentic, so I can say whatever I want, right? So it's being sensitive to that, which is why we've added the A there, because that accountability comes into picture, right?
Hmm.
It's a balance of how we do that together. You don't have to put on a mask to come to the organization, but that also doesn't mean you can be so authentic that you're going around hurting people. How do you create that balance so that we can all come together and we are able to be ourselves, and we are able to shine together and work together and collaborate together?
Thank you, thank you. I wanted to tickle you with that question. I mean, only because I think very often we either find people talking about authenticity when it comes to DEI, right? In a way that you are mentioning that I don't need to be accountable as long as I'm trying to be authentic, right? And I think you really gave us that clarity that, yeah, we're doing our best to create a safe space for you to be your best version and not wear a mask when you come here. And that is what is defined as authenticity, but it does not mean that you are not accountable, for your behavior, right? So I think fantastic, great balancing. Thank you very much. Yeah. And so what steps do you all take to embed all of this into the company culture? So how does ideal come into place, right? Because you did say, I think what I liked about ideal is that, you're doing it right from the beginning, which is recruitment, right up, I mean, attracting the talent, right up to the point of holding them accountable or holding everybody accountable. But I like the L the best because, when the leadership is involved, then that's the making of the culture. But
Hmm.
could you tell us a little bit more about, some steps that you take within your organization that makes it happen?
So it's all about how do we get, it's all about inclusiveness, because that's where we start. That's where we always look at it, right? So as I said before, in everything, all the key decisions of the organizations, we involve our people there. So so we come up with creative ways of how do we get values. So for example, when we first looked at what the values were, because it is by the people for the people, we got the whole organization involved and looking at how do we look at what is our values and how do we bring all of these things together. And so there's various workshops done to get everybody's inputs and then finally crafted it. Now, we are just looking at how do we take SUSE to that next level of success. And we've just looked at what is our vision and what is our mission going to be and so on. And again, we're looking at how do we involve everybody in the organization? How do we come up with creative ways where we can get inputs from everybody, and then how we build together? So similarly, after every engagement survey, of course, we come up with the action plans by involving everybody. And then every all hands, we go back and talk about, okay, these are the actions that we all decided on. Here's how this is going.
Hmm.
Here's some of it went well, some of it we have to work on further now, and let's get some more feedback and how do we proceed. So it means as an organization, what we're doing is we're not just being open and transparent and talking to people about what is our strategy, where are we going, what we're doing, but we are doing one extra step, which is involving them in building it together, co-creating all of these things. And so everybody truly believes that this is our organization, we build it together, we make it successful together. And that's really the essence of ideal. So that ownership comes on every single individual, that this is our company, we build this together, we make it successful together.
Nice, nice. What you describe is really ideal. And I'm very sure every organization, if we put them together, they will say that's our aspiration, that's also our dream. Okay. However, the real struggle that I find that we have today is time. Because you said two things, right? Co creating, involving everybody,
Everyone.
and
Yeah.
having conversations. And you did mention workshop. Now, all of it is so put aside the investment in workshop. Okay. I think, well, let's put that aside because that's resourcing. But I think one thing that most of us don't seem to have, even for decent communication, day to day communication, is time, right? How do how do you set priorities in your organization in setting the ideal culture? Because you seem to put aside time to make this a priority, right? How do you make a business case for everybody to be involved, to make this happen?
Yeah. Yeah, there's various ways that we do, right? Because it's multiple ways that we have to be able to address people, right? Sometimes emails don't work and things don't work, right? So you would have to look at various ways. So we have got a part of, obviously, one way is doing a survey, right? To do an engagement survey, get as much inputs there. The second is we have what we call as executive leadership. We call it as ELT. We have what we call as these ELT listening sessions, where people can come in and actually talk about, what are some of the challenges, where they are, what are some of the things that they are facing, and so on. And then we have these engagement workshops where we further understand what are the things. Now, we do this engagement workshops at organization level, but also our business partners, our people business partners, they also work with their respective functions, etc., or team specific, and they look at what are some of the key actions they should be taking it and how should they be incorporating it for their own specific teams, for their own specific functions, and so on. So it's done in many different ways. And then we have these, to say, okay, finally, we took all of these inputs. What did we do with it? So we have these all hands, global all hands, where our CEO and the other executive leadership team are talking about how we are taking all of this and building it into our strategies. How this is becoming on what are some of the actions that we are taking, what are some of the initiatives that we are driving, and how we are moving forward. And it's also just keeping that, just totally keeping it open and transparent in that communication, because it's also about how the leadership builds the trust with everyone, right? So that, and how do we create this environment of trust so that everybody trust each other. Everybody trusts the leaders trust the people, and how we can bring it all together and we make it happen. So it's various ways of communicating, right? I mean, other ways of doing it is like doing that contest, doing something fun, we have some, various types of sessions, this, that, and we create some things so that people can come together, because we're very, because, with, we have a very hybrid working kind of a culture.
Right.
So there could be many people working from different countries across the world, where they may not have a SUSE office in that particular city or in that particular place where they are at. So how do we also build this culture, right? When everything is remote. If there is a site, fantastic. But how do we don't believe in forcing people to come to the office, but how do we create opportunities where people feel like they should come in because they'll build that networks. So we do various kinds of networking sessions and something or the other to celebrate, so people come together and build that relationship, build that collaborative spirit. Like, for example, today our CEO was in our London office, and we just got all of the people along, and it was just a very nice thing, because people thought, oh, it's good to be coming into the office and a great time to meet everybody, so let's go into the office. So it's just a nice thing that we create, and how we all come together. So it's various things, right? It's not one formula, and it should be different, because we are all diverse, and it has to be diverse ways in which we are able to touch people in different ways.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing right now, and which is amazing, is that you use various touch points to encourage people to speak up, which I suppose leads to them feeling accepted, psychologically safe, right? Which is really the heart of DEI. So you seem to be doing that at very various different touch points, because of the way things are working, right? And very, very creative. You also seem to have different ways of doing stuff. Some could be fun, some could be speaking from the heart, right? But before I pass it to Sham, what do you think the one thing that you guys get right in the various ways you're trying to get people to speak up or participate, that encourages people to want to say about themselves or what is important for them to be accepted? Because one of those things we hear is that organizations, or even in groups, we tell people our intention: please speak up, we want to understand you, so that you feel accepted, right? So that is seem to be said, but what also comes across is that, yeah, but I asked them, but they never tell me, right? That so you obviously are doing something right for people to speak up, because I think that's showing up in
Mm.
people showing up for your sessions.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, coming out of their normal comfort zone of working from home and say, oh, today we're going to go to the office, right? Because I feel a sense of belonging and I want to be part of this. So that's showing up. So what's that one thing that you think is the main factor, and you got that right, that gets people to be wanting to be part of this tribe because they accept it?
I think it all starts with the L, the leadership part,
Mm.
because starting from the CEO. In fact, the when to talk about how the ideal came in, when we had come up with the concept of the DEI, it was actually idea. When me within the team, when we were looking at it, was called idea. And then when I actually took this to discuss with our CEO to say, here's what we're thinking in terms of, we want this as idea because we want everybody to be accountable, he was the one who actually added the L, because he is super passionate about this, and he believes that this cannot happen if the L is not there, the leadership support is not there. And so that's how the idea became ideal. um, and um, and I think uh, ensuring that our leaders are role modeling and walking the talk is very important. It's very easy to say, let's create a very open environment where everybody feels psychologically safe. But then the minute somebody opens up their mouth, if we are shooting them, then that's not the right environment. We have to be able to walk the talk and show that you can actually come in and have the right environment, and you will be respected and we will answer you, which is why, and do we even have a forum for people to come and speak, which is why we have all of those listening sessions and those engagement workshops where people can come and speak and nobody is going to be judging them. It's to
Mm.
understand what is it they have in mind, what are the challenges that they are facing, and how can we all come together to solve. And nobody is sitting in an ivory tower to solve it either. We all look at how do we solve this together, and how do we. So I think that's what's the important part, because sometimes people think, oh, we'll come up with this mission, we'll come up with this values, and have a workshop with the leadership, and somewhere it's on the wall. But if it is
Mm.
not lived every day, and people don't even relate to it, it's somewhere up on the wall, people don't even remember what those are,
Mm.
then it really doesn't make sense. So it's how do we create that right culture and how everybody lives it together. And that's how do we bring it all together. That's what matters. And it takes time to do that.
Mm.
But people should see that my voice matters. So to give you an example, we did the engagement survey earlier this year, and we gave 2 weeks window. And typically, you know how it is, we have to sometimes extend it, remind everybody, please do the engagement survey. Here we did not even extend it by one day. We finished it exactly on time, and we got, and in fact I wanted to add in a lot of additional questions. We in fact doubled the questions from last year in terms of the survey, and we got 90% participation rate. Even if you look at the number of comments, they were like, if you took an average, it was about 6 comments per individual.
Mm.
um, the fact that 90% globally we've had that participation. Some countries it was like 100%. You can imagine to get that
Mm.
90%, right? And even there, everyone's not just participated and put a tick, but also take bother to write so many comments. People won't do it if they don't believe that actions will be taken, their voices won't be heard.
Yeah.
And that's a true reflection if people really believe that voices will be heard and they can actually have their say. It's a true indication for me. So it's hard work, but at the end of the day, we have a organization where people feel they are empowered, where they can be engaged, and they truly believe that this is our organization.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. 90% and an average of 6 comments per person. It shows the investment, how vested people are in, that's one. And the trust that they have in listen, in believing what leadership says, we're going to make it count, your voice counts, it's safe, let's do this, right? I'm sure it took some work to get there, but you've gotten there. I mean, it's probably going to just increase, right? So I want to go back to backtrack a little bit into the leadership, right? So you say you start with I. If you've got inclusiveness, then everything else follows through, right? But you kind of bordered it with the L on this side, right? And you could say the L is also where you need to start, because if you don't start with the L, then the I is not going to start at all, right? So you could also look at it from that way, right? So let's look at the L. Let's discuss a little bit about the L, right? And from the perspective of, so you shared quite um, generously in terms of all the how you're doing it, you're how you think about it, how you've crafted little different, not little but different kinds of interventions to attract different people, and what they are. It's inclusiveness in action, right? I want to talk about what's the foundation, the foundation that the L created, right? And I'm not sure. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say maybe everyone wasn't on board at the same time. Everyone didn't buy into the idea. So, from your experience, what was the mindset shifts or skills that needed to be built by the senior leadership team in order for us to say now, okay, we are ready and to take ideal and run with it.
Actually, to be very honest, because we as an open source organization, it
Mm,
was not so much of a mind shift that had to be done
mm,
because the foundation was already there.
mm,
And so when we were looking at how should we look at DEI and what is our DEI version 2 or 3, or as we are calling it,
mm,
um, like I said, there were various questions. So, there are many organizations who decide they should have targets, diversity targets, how we measure what we do. And which is when, and people were asking, so what is, as SUSE, do we want to have these kinds of targets at various
mm,
levels, director level, VP level, what is the kind of, and that's where we felt we don't want to look at it superficially like that. Is it just about genders?
mm,
Diversity goes so much beyond everything. It's if we are truly looking at diversity, it's how we're involving everybody to be able to have a voice, everybody being seen and being counted, being everybody, and how do we celebrate that uniqueness, right? So that's what we really looked at, and that's how we said, okay, this is what I is
mm,
ideal for us, and how, and for the leaders, I always start with all of the various things. We always look at it. We in fact let's look at our own diversity at the leadership level, at the executive leadership team. So we looked at at the personality level to see
mm,
how are we, because sometimes, a lot of the times we, psychologically speaking and unconsciously, maybe when we hire people like us.
mm,
So we wanted to see what is the diversity in this team. So we actually use psychometrics to look at that part. And what was really good to see was that it was, there was such a big spectrum there. And we could saw that our team was actually very truly diverse in terms of various ways, right? So, and we're doing this with all of the other leadership teams too, to say, okay, we're all so diverse. How do we ensure that the everyone's voice is heard? There could be some loud mouths. There could be some people who are quieter. How do we make sure? But they could be the ones who have the right ideas. So knowing each other, understanding each other, knowing what our strengths are, who is complementing our strengths, helps us to have a better team. So we're doing these things where so it's easier for people to understand. These are the ones we are the extroverts. So maybe we should keep quiet and make sure that we create a time so that all the introverts can have their time and they're able to talk about their ideas and have their voice too. So these are some of the things which we're doing to ensure people kind of understand each other, people can complement each other's strengths, they know where they're at, and as a team they look at how can we work together better. So we've had this again, as various teams, we're doing these things so that people come together and understand the kinds of how you can have diversity of thought, how you can have diversity of personality, and how do we work with so many different personalities, and how do we still make a decision with all of that.
Wow. Okay. So it's amazing. This is the first time. It's well, not the first time, but you don't often hear that senior leadership goes through that process that usually you say it's left to the next level, the third level down, that you need to look at your team. How do you make the team work? But what you've described is how does the senior leadership team make itself work? Right. And we need to see how we are, who we are, and how we are different, right? We're not separate people. We're not separate entities within that leadership team. We are one. So that's a very interesting, not method, but way of being. All right, your senior leadership team has. I noticed a couple of things. The word walk the talk that phrase came to my mind. But before that, I'm not sure whether you realize this, probably you're doing it unconsciously. You kept saying, you have for a few times mentioned this, because we are an open source, therefore, right? I think there's something there. So there's something there in terms of, because you're an open source, you're thinking in a certain way. So tell us a little bit about it. What when you say because we are an open source, what does that mean to you, and what does that mean to the leadership team?
See, our culture and the way we think comes from that open source world, and we were one of the pioneers in the open source world, right?
Okay.
So the principles of the open source is that the idea can come from anywhere. It's how do we start building on it and bringing in value there, right? So if you look at DEI, it's actually built in there. It becomes the DNA of it, right? It is whether it is so it's and as an open source company, you should be open to feedback. You should be open to new ideas. You should be open to being open and being transparent is very important. And then when we make a decision, it's not a democratic decision. It is what is right for the organization. So it's a meritocratic decision, right? It's not a democratic decision. So these are some of the things. So these are the principles we try to apply, for our culture and how we bring this together. And when we are talking about walking the talk, as you said, there are certain things which always has to start from the top, and that's where that's why we like to start in terms of the role modeling and other things, starting from the CEO, who, to be very honest, is very passionate about some of these things. Like I said, he is the one who added the L into it, and he believes the leadership is the one which really needs to drive. and and that is the most important ingredient to make this successful.
Hmm. Hmm. So, if not if, as you say, it's open source. It's kind of like you said, the DNA for DEI, right? Um, it's like the prototype, right, for DEI. The, and that's the way the organization has been thinking. That's the way it's been working. Um, and you're putting it into a framework for everything else in the organization, the people part of the organization. Now, what was the business impetus to bring ideal into the picture or to drive ideal? What's the business impetus that you're open source, you've been successful, so what's making it so important that you drive it now, right? And make a specific, framework. You're doing a lot of thinking, you're doing a lot of tracking, right? There's a lot of resources that going into it. There's a lot of time of the senior leadership has spent on it, which is a lot of money, right? So what's driving it? What's underpinning it?
Well, it's very simple. Business
Hmm.
success can't happen without people success.
Hmm.
Right? If we want the best business success, it's how we come together as a team and as a people should become successful.
Hmm.
And how do we? And if we want to drive the organization to, really go look at how do we grow, how do we, get into that next level of success, we wanted to again bring this the spirit of open source, and how do we ensure that we are strong here,
Hmm.
because when we do that, and we again look at, okay, how do we go to that next level of success, what do we
Hmm.
need to do, and how do we all come together once again and start looking at how do we make this happen. So it's really getting everybody engaged, getting everybody, because ultimately the business success can happen. We can make 1 plus 1 as something amazing if we
Hmm.
bring all of the things, right? We always believe that culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? You can
Yep.
have great business strategies, etc., but it's how you bring the people together. You can have a great vision, you can have a great mission, you can have great products, um, but it's how the people come together and
Correct.
how we make it all happen. How do we ensure that we take our organization with us, everybody with us, and then we make this happen. So that's basically how we felt that we should look at this once again and see how we can bring this and in what we call as our next version of the DEI,
Hmm.
or what is our approach to DEI. And I think we are sort of thought leaders in this particular space, because the way we are truly thinking about DEI is ideally how it should be looked at in the first place. And that's why, we were very particular that, yes, ideal actually makes it right, because that's the way DEI should be treated.
Hmm.
The philosophy of that is, at the end of the day, people matter. If people are successful, if people are happy, the business success will always happen.
Nice. Very
Wow,
good.
you are taking the road less traveled.
And sometimes that's the more difficult route to take,
Yeah,
or the longer
because
route.
yeah,
Or
yeah, I mean
yeah.
long, but it's really I mean, I'm hearing so much of I'm very inspired, I love, you're right, your ideal is perfect because it is ideal, and it's how it should be the way you're describing it, right? Because we often hear about DEI, but not you're slicing it in every possible dimension to make sure everything
Hmm.
is covered, right? But what was interesting for me is that it's very clear over and over again that you are talking about people, right? You're talking about people, and people being the heart of success. And this is
Hmm.
something we commonly hear anyway. Whether we commonly internalize and practice is a different thing, right?
Yeah.
But we commonly hear this is something leaders talk about, organization talk about, and we take pride on that, right? But I'm just wondering, for your organization, y'all are, you seem to be obsessed about DEI and ideal. Because if you look at ideal and how much of effort that actually goes into it, right? What do you think is driving to really put people first in business?
See, I think instead of saying we're obsessed with ideal and DEI, I would say we are obsessed with our right culture, how we are engaged, and how we build this company, right? You know, I don't think there's any company in the world today who is successful but don't have the right culture or don't have a great, engagement, right? So, which is why if we really want to build a truly successful organization, it has to be by getting the people engaged, bringing the right people together and getting them engaged. And that's when we can have amazing successes happening. When
Nice.
everybody in the company is successful, you can have a company which is successful, right? There's no way a company can be successful without it. So that's what we're aiming at. That's our mantra. It's not just people, it's how we bring the people together. Every company has people in it, but it's the
Nice.
secret is how we bring this people together,
Hmm.
uh, as our secret sauce to really make this and bind us together, and how we all live our values and how we make all of this happen. That's the special part.
Nice, nice. Beautifully summarized. It's not just people, but how we bring our people together is our secret sauce. Yeah. Fantastic. Just simply brilliant. Yeah. I think we only have 3 more minutes, so maybe we should ask Savita the last question, right? Now, just curious. I mean, you've been talking about your organization and leadership. What has been an ideal moment for you, Savita? That moment where that the leader or team member create ideal for you. So, what has been your moment? Can you just share it with us?
Hmm.
Well, my first thought which comes to mind is, when, as I said before, when we were initially thinking of calling it as idea, and when we were discussing with our CEO, he decided to make it, he decided and he suggested that we should add L to it. For me, that is something very important because, some of these things that coming from the CEO himself, it really shows how it is. And that's an ideal moment for me. But we've had many such moments, right? When we were doing the engagement workshop, for example, we had one of the newer, people who had joined the organization, part of that workshop. And this person said, this is the first time in his 30 years of experience where he was called into a workshop like this where we were asking, what is this for you, what is, and so on, right? So he said, he's never experienced it before, and that was heartening to hear. So I think it's how each of us, right? We when people come into the organization as new people join in, right? Um, People feel integrated into the organization very quickly. So much so that we call it as Sousa dog years, because days feels like months and months feel like years. Um, you know, for example, I've been here for just 4 months now, but it feels like I've been here for greater than 4 years. So it's just, I think, and the way it's not because just the way things are. It's just the way you get integrated into it, how people are, how we're welcoming, and how everybody comes in. And this is not something me. I've heard this from so many new people who join the organization, and when they're onboarding, we hear this. They say there's something here which is special, which we start feeling at home very soon. And that's a nice word to hear. So it feels so people say coming here feels like homecoming. I don't feel like, where the hell did I land? um, and that's an ideal moment because we are ensuring that we are welcoming the new person in, so they feel at home. They don't feel out of place, and then we are ensuring that we are including them very quickly and integrating them very quickly with us. So
Mm, there you go.
Yes.
Oh,
Thank
wow. Very nice, very nice. Thank you for summarizing it with us, and thank you for spending the 1 hour with us, with me and Malar, Savita. It was great to see you again, and it was also very interesting to take for you to take us through that journey of ideal, that ideal journey that you're going, that you started. You're kind of maybe somewhere. I'm not sure whether in the middle or past middle, but it's a journey that you're going through, and thank you for sharing that with us. I think one of the things that comes across really clearly for me is that how you're really vested in this and how you're passionate about it, how you're excited about it. How I think, if I were you, if I'm putting myself in your place, it'll be like I see this thing just coming to life in front of me, and I'm having a hand in it, and and I'm cooking it, I'm dissecting it, and then I'm seeing it, and I'm putting it back together in a different form. The energy just comes across to me. We talk about like,
thank you. But that energy comes when we get everybody involved in the organization. That's where the energy becomes, the energy just
contagious.
grows, because everybody believes in it and everybody becomes part of it. And that's when
Mm,
that energy multiplies and
yeah,
becomes
yeah,
exponential. I
yeah.
think that's what's the best part.
Yeah, right. And it's like, it doesn't drain you, it just energizes you. It's flow in practice. It's almost intuitively flow in practice. And I also like the way you said, popped up to me was, when you said people came, you're there for 4 months and it feels like you've been there for years. If you hear that from somebody else, it feels like, oh my God, I've been here for years. But it's not, right? It's the opposite. It's the same thing, right? It's the opposite. It's like I feel comfortable. I'm at home. I have come to this place where everybody just accepts me, and we go with it, right? And we make something good. Okay, so those are the two things that jumped out at me. Thank you for sharing that with us. We're gonna put you backstage while we close the show, Savita. But once again, thank you very much. It was
Yeah.
really great having a chat with you.
Thank you
Yeah, I've learned
very
so
much.
much about ideal, but specifically, I think you've made me feel home with the subject. So thank you very much.
Thank
Ah,
you.
very nice. Thank you. Okay, so that was fast. We thought, you said the 3 minutes more, and then we've gone into overtime a little bit. So sorry about that. Kind of raving. So thank you very much for joining us, everyone. It is another week of a very interesting topic that matters. DEI but put in an ideal way. It's not so ideal. I think Savita has given us ways of thinking about it and making it how we can make it more part of our everyday workplace. Yeah. Malar, if I
Um, yeah, I think for me, it's ideal. It's it fits so perfectly,
Hmm.
right? And the context is very clear. So if you want to talk about be in clarity, I think
Yeah,
Savita has it,
that's that.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so clear. And if for me, my greatest takeaway is that I think a lot of the things that we tend to hear about DEI and the
Hmm.
challenges in bringing DEI as a culture, I think they've got the magic formula, which is why they've got the magic sauce.
Yeah.
Really, really very clear. And it's about culture, and it
Hmm.
is really about not who we have, but we are only stronger when we come together as one tribe. And that is DEI as a strategy. So I love that. It makes so much of sense. So
Sense.
with
Yeah.
that, I think we should let our people go. Just one
Yes.
Mark, I think Gerald had said hi, and Gerald, for some reason, we are not
We
able
couldn't
to
see it. To
show.
see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so just wanted to acknowledge him. And so
Okay.
thank you very much. And Sham, you have a great break from the show. Okay, Sham
No,
is
I'm not having. No, I'm not flying away. I was just going to say that I'm going to leave the show in the very, very capable hands of Ashok and you. I'm sure, I don't know who will look after each other, but never mind, that will be sorted out on its own. I will come back with lots of things to share out of ATD in 2024 in New Orleans, and and the International Forum in Toronto for the Think on Your Feet group. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening. I'm going to have a good evening dinner with my family before I fly away tomorrow morning. Bye-bye, everyone.
Okay, fly safe and come back with loads of stuff for us, right? Until then, Ashok and I will be entertaining you all every other week until Sham flies back. So have a good night, and this is bye from Malaysia.